Be a little help.
All right, I'd like to bring this, the Department of Human Services, public hearing, to order. Just to let you know, what this is all about. The intent of the public hearing is to provide an opportunity to comment on funded programs for residents of Winnebago County who are affected by developmentally, disabilities, chemical dependency, or mental illness. And on the financial and social services programs available through Winnebago County Department of Human Services. The one thing is we're not here to talk about asking for any kind of money or anything. What we're doing is asking how programs that we have out there now are working. If they are working, if they're not working, if there's things you'd like to see changed or whatever. But this isn't to ask for financial aid. All individuals who wish to speak may do so during this hearing. I, as the chair of the Department of Human Services Board, will conduct the hearing, and I will call on the individuals indicating that their turn to speak. Each person will be limited on a time available to speak. The exact time will be limited on determined on how many people we have that are talking. Department of Human Services staff and board members will be present to listen to comments by those wishing to speak. The intent is, like I said, is to take testimony, but not discuss or comment on testimony. No decisions will be made at this public hearing on it. In addition to the verbal testimony, written comments will also be accepted. Such comments should be sent to the Winnebago County Department of Human Services, P.O. Box 2187, Oshkosh, Wisconsin, 54903-2187. So I thank everybody for the cooperation and attending today. So who wants to, any of you guys can start. I mean, we got Kelly, you want to go first?
Sure. Thank you. Well, Angela, I'll let you go first.
Sure. Whoever, that's fine.
Thank you.
I'm Angela Stuke with Family Services, and I want to thank you for the opportunity today just to talk about our Parent Connection programming, which is both education and prevention in nature. And Kelly will be talking about a lot of our particulars. And although we cannot, ask for funding today, I just want to thank you for your past funding. We have been funded through the county for a number of years, and every dollar is so critical for our prevention work. And we know that prevention does work. It keeps children and families together. Our primary goal is to prevent child abuse and neglect from happening and make sure our little ones are ready to enter school, ready to learn and be able to maintain in a classroom setting. Prevention does have a return on investment. New studies show, especially since the pandemic, that the return on investment for every dollar in prevention yields us anywhere from $7 to $10 in savings from deeper end services and other services that sometimes really impact and dismantle the family unit as we know it today. So we're forever grateful for all of your continued support to our prevention programming. So I'm going to turn over to Kelly to talk about more of the particulars about Parent Connection. So thank you again.
Hi, I'm Kelly Hintz. I'm the program manager for Parent Connection in our Oshkosh office that serves Winnebago County. And we currently serve over 100 families in our home visiting program. And Winnebago County generously supports some of those home visiting families. We currently have a waiting list of 16 families that we're hoping to see, but we do not know how long that will be. We do anticipate it's going to be a couple months before we can get these families or get to start even looking at our waiting list. So our home visiting program really works with families who have children prenatal to age 3, and we go into homes and we see them either weekly or bi-weekly, and we work with families on child development and family well-being. So we do a lot of goal setting and resource connections to community partners. And like Angela had mentioned, our main goal is to prevent child abuse and neglect, but also to make sure that children are ready for school. Hoping that when they get to Head Start or early childhood through the school district, that they're on pace to, with their peers for appropriate development. We do this by screening them multiple times in their 3-year period in our program, using the ages and stages questionnaires. And if there is a delay or any concern by the parent, connecting them to early intervention services like Birth to 3 or the school district. We work with a lot of families that have a lot of barriers they're trying to overcome, not just with parenting, but obviously the barriers of unemployment and not having food or housing contributes to stress. And sometimes when you're stressed as a parent, you tend to take that out on your kids. And we're working with families to make sure that even if the family is feeling stressed, that we can be a support to them and that they know that they can come to us and we can help both with their children and goals they have for themselves. What we've seen in the last year, the trend that we've seen is a lot of families that reach that 3-year-old age up until the child goes to 4K or early childhood, that there's really not that many services. And our Families First program meets with those families in that gap year, I like to call it, when they're going to go to the next educational setting, and really working with parents. And it's not long-term, it's more of specific goals that they have. A lot of it's on transitions and structure, things like that. So once they maybe graduate from our Parents as Teachers program at 3, usually they're going on to the next step. But some of these kiddos, their birthdays fall in weird months, so they don't qualify to attend the next educational setting until the following year. So we're working with those families to make sure that they have support too, because we don't want them to feel just because you have a child over the age of 3 that there's really nothing out there for you if they don't qualify for school yet. So we really appreciate the support that we get from Winnebago County and our work with Annette. And we want to make sure that all families get the best start possible, and especially kids get the best start possible. So thank you so much for this time and the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about our program.
Thank you. Anyone has questions? Just here to listen.
I didn't catch your names. I had to sign in on the sheet, but
Go ahead.
if you introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Hope Hazel. I'm the program coordinator at Friendship Place across the street. We are a mental health outreach center for adults. We provide social, educational, and recreational programming. Our goal is to prevent death by suicide, keep our clients out of the hospital, and to help them be functioning members of their community. And we just want to thank you for your past funding. And because of that funding, we are able to help over 200 Winnebago County residents each month.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public that would like to speak at this time? Seeing none, we will hold this public hearing open until 4 o'clock, because that's what we allotted for our time for a public hearing is 1 hour. So if anybody comes on while we're doing our meeting, we'll kind of jog from our meeting and go right back to the public hearing. And at 4 o'clock, then we will adjourn the public hearing and continue on from where we are from there. Everybody okay? All right. Then we'll go on with the Human Services Board committee meeting. First on the agenda is a public hearing from people on public programs. I guess we already had that. Unless there's any more comments from anybody on any programs or anything, public, anything said? All right, then public comments on agenda items. Any public comments on any agenda items on today's agenda? Then we go to the approve the minutes of the May 1st, 2023 Human Services Board meeting.
I move to approve as presented. Second.
And a motion made and seconded to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Accept minutes from the May 8th, 2023 ADRC committee meeting.
I move.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Second, okay. That made, and
I
second.
moved to accept the minutes of the ADRC committee.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the May 8th ADRC committee meetings. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Approved. Number 5, consider an act on resolution to authorize the purchase of 1021 Green Acres Lane in Neenah, Wisconsin for $240,000 plus an additional $100,000 for renovation costs with either a transfer from the unassigned general fund balance or an advance from general fund to be reimbursed with a subsequent board bond issue. So you want to move that?
I move that we consider active resolution to authorize the purchase.
Is there a second?
Second.
And a second? Discussion,
Yeah, I got a presentation, so.
but that's okay, but yeah, we have to move it till we get to discussion first.
You all right with the presentation?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, let me go with, hopefully this one will work. See if I can, yep, good, yep, there it was, all right. Okay, so you've got a copy of the resolution mailed to you ahead of time. Basically, we're in a very similar situation than we were last year. Last year, we had an unexpected end of the shelter care facility. Last year was LSS. They were wanting to sell the property. We had an first opportunity to buy it. We went through the whole process. Everybody remembers that. Okay, so what happened this year is out of the blue, a couple months ago, the Winnebago County Housing Authority owns this building on Green Acres Lane, and they have been renting it to us for the last 25 years or so, 27 years. And it's been run and operated for us by Family Services Association. But the county pays the rent on this facility, and that was by lease agreements going back 27 years. So when Winnebago County Housing Authority announced to us that their plan is to sell this building, which we are using for an 8-bed group home. Now, a group home is a little different than shelter care. Shelter care is like anybody could be admitted there, stay for a few days, and then leave and go back home or go wherever. This is a group home. A group home is where we select up to 8 boys who can be in this home at one time for a period of 6 months or longer. And so this is their longer term home. Obviously, the plan is to get them back home, but these are kids that aren't in a shelter care arrangement. So there isn't as much coming and going. And we select the kids that go in there. So it's a little bit different than shelter care in terms of what it's used for. We still have a statutory responsibility to provide group home care. We don't have to run a group home ourselves. We don't have to, we can contract with any variety of people for group home beds. The arrangement we have with Family Services is they will exclusively run this 8-bed facility for us. So we directly contract with them, and they are directly working with just us, and they aren't opening the beds to other counties. We have exclusive rights for this facility. So with this building going away, obviously the same kind of circumstances. It's a very large building. It's 4,348 square feet, 8 separate bedrooms. It's when I've asked a couple of people to look into the real estate market, they're saying we can't find anything of this size used for this kind of a purpose. Especially at the asking price of $240,000. So the reason that the asking price of the housing authority is so low is because they recognize the relationship that we've had with them over the last 27 years. And they believe that they, want to do right by us and not overcharge us for a building. So we're getting a really, really good price. Mike Elder has been out there with some of his specialists to look at all the features of the building, the pipes, the electrical, the roof, the this, the that. And he's determined that it only needs about $100,000 of improvements, if you will, to bring it up to the code that we need for a public building. So this one is coming in at a much less cost than, if you remember, last year's cost for buying the building and rehabbing it was, I think, $1 million together. This together, the asking price plus the improvements are $340,000. So it's not as, it's only about a third as costly as the previous purchase. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about this place. So again, we're required to do it by statute. That's always a question that comes up. Family Services is running it for us right now. We have no plans on changing that arrangement, so we're not thinking about adding staff and running it ourselves, since we have a vendor who is willing to do it. If that ever changes in the future, then we'll look for any other vendors who might want to run it for us. If we can't find any, then we might need to consider staffing it ourselves with our own employees, but right now we don't need to do that. All we need to do is consider the purchase of the building.
Are these adolescents?
They're adolescents.
Are they court committed? And I mean, well.
Court order.
Court ordered, and, yeah, okay.
To be in a group.
And be in a group home, that's what I
And
wanted to make sure.
it's a secured placement, or is it not secured?
Okay, so none of the places that we have in Winnebago County are locked.
Okay.
So people can walk off site. Typically, it's run three shifts of staff, so everybody's up all the time. So here's a picture of the kitchen, and this was just newly remodeled this past year. We have been asking them to remodel the kitchen for several years, and the Housing Authority got around to it last summer, mainly because we said, how about if we find you someone who can do it for you, because they kept saying, we don't have the manpower to remodel the kitchen. So this was actually done by
J. Albright.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
J. Albert.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the Housing Authority said, if you get us a reasonable price and a person to do it, we'll because they had all of the cabinetry and I believe countertops and things. They had purchased all of that and was sitting at the Housing Authority in their warehouse. So it wasn't like they just had to find somebody to install it. So I think from looking at the pictures, they did a pretty nice job. I mean, it's a little hard to see right now looking through the lighting here, but it's I think it's very usable. It's got a nice island there, and I think they're happy with it.
It's wonderful. Yes.
They're
they're
good.
very happy.
Seems like a small refrigerator for a family of 8 plus adults.
I think there's 2 refrigerators.
Oh, there's 2?
Yeah, they may not all be in there.
Oh, okay. And I say, because there's eight kids, I'm counting a family of 8 and whatever adults are in there, so.
I believe there's one in the basement,
Oh, okay,
another refrigerator and a freezer.
okay.
So here's a picture of the great room. So it's, again, maybe not quite as large as the shelter care. I don't know square footage wise of the great rooms, how they compare, but pretty nice size. Okay, so what it does, and you guys anticipated the questions earlier, we provide supervision, care, treatment for the youth that are there. It's licensed it's already licensed correctly, and it's zoned correctly, of course, because we've been using it for a group home for many years. So we don't have to go through that rigmarole at all. It's just that the ownership of the building is going to change. The service isn't going to change.
And are all the children in school?
Are they all in school?
Like, remember when we were over on, the other one, and then she said sometimes kids are expelled from school, so they have to do, they just do sort of homeschooling themselves. Are all these children, do you know, are they all in school?
They are not always all in school. I mean, we certainly try to keep them in school, but
Yeah.
if the school expels them, then we
Okay.
have to do. what we
Okay.
can.
Now, what's a little different is because you're in a group home and it's a longer amount of time, 6 months or more, need a school district. Will anybody who can't get to back to their home districts, NIDA will pick them up as a student for NIDA.
Okay, all right.
So that's a little different than the shelter care, which is we have to truck everybody to all of their different school districts every day.
Oh,
We
that's
don't have
right.
to do that with the
Yeah.
group. Okay, so here's a picture of a typical bedroom. And again, it's not a cracker box, so that's good. Kind of similar to shelter care, I think. I'm not particularly fond of green for a wall, but that's just me.
But see, I thought that was like having an accent wall.
It kind of goes nice with the bedspread.
Yeah. What do you like to call it? Having an accent wall makes it a little more cheery than
That's,
having, okay,
I'm just teasing now.
all right.
Okay, so here it is, they attend the area school district. Usually 6 to 12 months. And basically the whole goal though is try to get the kids the help that they need, the counseling, the family involvement. They're not too far away from their families because families can still get to the NIDA area. If they're in Winnebago County, it's not like they have to drive halfway across the state.
All these kids are Winnebago County.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, and this is a picture of the dining room, and again, you can't see it quite as well, but they're nice, looks like wood table.
Yep, wood tables, wood furnishings.
Yeah, is that hardwood floor or just a
Yep, hardwood floor.
hardwood floor? And little vaulted, looks like a, well, maybe it isn't vaulted.
Yeah.
Anyway, dining area. All right, it is court ordered, Larry anticipated that question. I mentioned where the building's coming from. We've entered into informal negotiations with them. I talked to Wendy Fromm, is the executive director of the Housing Authority, Winnebago County Housing Authority. And we had really good conversations, and she informally accepted that $240 would be the sale price. And then Mike Elder said he would put in $100,000 for contingency for the things that he needs to bring up to speed for our public building.
And we keep the furnishings.
Yes.
Yeah, everything's goes with it, yeah. Here's a rec room in the basement. So pool table, foosball. I see a weightlifting set there, a dartboard. A nice, nice finished basement. I don't see any exposed wiring or anything, so that's good. All right, so here's our time frame. So we're starting with all of you today, and then I am asking that I will get on the county board meeting for this month simply to do a presentation. This presentation to the county board later this month. Then at the end of the month to go to facilities committee, and they will take up this resolution. And Mike Elder knows that facilities will take it up at the end of this month. And then P&F, Personnel and Finance, will do the resolution at the beginning of July, and then hopefully the county board by the third week of July for action. So the presentation is kind of, in order to get this thing to work correctly, I have to do the presentation before all the committees have had a chance to hear about it. You guys are hearing about it ahead of the presentation I'm doing to county board, but the other two committees will hear about it after the presentation. So that's the time schedule for working this way through that. And yeah, so it's 4,348 square feet, 8 bedrooms. It's a 3-car garage. On the picture up front, there's 2 cars in the front, and then there's a third stall or storage in the back of the second of that. And a nice, looks like a nice big lot. And we're gonna project 18 years for cost payback. That would be equivalent to if we continue to rent and add the maintenance, and how long would it take to pay it off? And then after that, it's basically the county's benefit. Completely. And Mike Elder's already agreed to maintain it.
Couple questions. I'll go backwards, I guess. Will the children stay in the building during these repairs and renovations, or do they have to be off-site for
The
that?
renovations are mostly exterior.
Okay,
They're not interior.
and was there a basement? Was that where the
Yeah,
rec
that's
room
what
was?
Here's another picture.
This is
There was a
basement
rec room I just showed you,
Yeah.
and now here's the basement living area.
That looks like nice furniture.
Yeah,
And I'm sure in here there's mechanicals, but I don't know where they are.
They're down in the basement. There's also a set of washers and dryers that are down in the basement. And then the freezer and refrigerator that I spoke of, that's down in the basement.
And kids can do their own laundry, or are they supposed to, or staff doing laundry?
Well, they do it, well, staff do some of it, but the kids do mainly their own laundry.
Okay.
It's still for them.
And then my last question, I'm sure Mike Elder has looked into this, but the first picture, the roof looked flat, but at a slight angle.
Okay, we go back.
And then it sort of like it was gonna drain down onto another
Yeah, it's
flat
kind of a
roof.
weird angle.
Yeah, I trust Mike, but I mean,
He didn't seem to have any problems.
he didn't, okay, I don't know why they put flat roofs in Wisconsin, it's just nuts. But then it's draining off onto the garage.
Which is one of the places that they are gonna do some repair on that garage roof.
Yeah,
That's where they wanna do it.
okay, the garage roof, but what about the roof of the building?
Not, that's all good.
So it's all good.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
I trust you, Mike.
It has all the drainage.
Okay.
What are those things called?
So it was built circa
Yes.
1995. That's what we mean. I
Okay.
think they built it for us. So it's really been a Winnebago County housing project right from the get-go. It was that we didn't anticipate ever buying it. We would probably, if the housing authority hadn't said anything, we'd just continue to rent indefinitely. But with the housing authority going out, they said, do you want to buy it? Because we have to sell it.
well, you gotta look for another one, so why?
That's why we are where we are.
Yeah.
I didn't go, oh, let's buy another building,
Buy another
they're gonna
building,
sell it to us. No, they're like, sorry to tell you, we gotta sell the building. I'm like, oh, please, not right now. We just went through. And I said, we just went through one last year. I don't really, do you have to sell it?
$1 million building.
And they said, yeah, we have to sell it. So that's where we are. All right. So any other questions for me?
Yeah, I don't know if you mentioned it, but what's rent?
What is the rent now? Close to $3,000 a month. Well, yeah, it was, when I say $3,000, that's the last time I paid attention to it, was probably right around 3, so 32. 32, yeah. So when it goes up, you know, I mean, every year it goes up to 33, then 34, then 35. We keep,
We doubled it one year.
but Mike Elder, because I said, Mike, please go and inspect this property, see what you think. He took out a couple of his technical guys, they went through it, and they told Annette that it's actually, I will say this, he thinks it was in a little bit better shape than the shelter care.
Then shelter care one?
So I'm like, good.
Yeah, really. Ralph?
I have a bunch, but you answered one there. It's time, I know the government takes so long before we get this, it won't affect our buying it. All these couple, 3 months before we can really get the okay to buy it.
No, well, they don't need to sell it until, our lease with them is through the end of the year. So technically we can, you know, if we ran into a few snags, let's say we ran into a snag at PNF and there weren't some questions answered and we weren't ready for county board, we could delay it another month and get the answers. So we're in good shape there. We're not under the same gun that we were under last
No.
year.
Now, you said you select 8. What is the waiting list? How many people do we have waiting, trying to get into this? You pick the 8, is there a pool of 30, 36, just 8?
We don't have a wait list right now for the 8.
None.
So we just figure out what are the most appropriate. There are other facilities outside of the area that we can utilize too, if need be.
So how do you pick the 8?
Who's best suited for together as a group and
Okay.
who's best suited to be here.
So if two kids we know maybe came from the school district, maybe they don't get along, and maybe they're both needing supervision and the group home for maybe a similar thing, maybe we don't want to put the two of them together. We'll have one there and then we'll try to find another group home.
So they just randomly, they come up, you don't have like a bunch working, then how you.
So it's, you know, the census will vary, you know, sometimes it gets 4 or 5, sometimes it's, 8.
And down the courts too?
And then, do they get the help there or do they get taken somewhere to have help? The treatments or that, do they do it right there or they take them somewhere?
Some treatment is provided on site in terms of, they have a part-time therapist that works with them sometimes. We do groups that are there, some real psychoeducational services are done on site. And then we also have our in-home therapy teams that will go and be there, but we also do things off-site too.
Okay.
They'll be involved in services in the community.
The work with the families will probably have to be done by our staff, you know, taking them out and bringing them back to their house, doing some things. If it's on site, it's probably gonna be their therapist.
Okay. Maintenance now later, I mean, we buy these buildings and do we have is there, I always say kitty, but is there a way to, 18 years, it needs this, but every once in a while we buy something and find out that some other things come up. Do we have a maintenance plan
Like
for
the owner of the
it?
green, take care of it.
You just take care of it.
No, we have a facilities department in the county.
Because I mean, throughout the time I've been there, the
Right.
county has a lot of issues out there, the things that aren't getting done maintenance wise. So is there so much that you can't keep up or what? I'm just.
Well, I think it's, Mike's doing that big facilities analysis right now. He's aware and he said he would be okay with adding this to the group. The roof wasn't done that long ago, so I don't think it's gonna be an immediate issue. There is, the garage roof has some leaking and he said we'll have to get on that right away and, but that's a contract, they can contract that, they don't have to do it. So I think his plan is that he'll just make that part of the regular maintenance, routine of the county. And whatever it needs, if it needs a new water heater, if it can make it till next year, he'll probably make it till next year. If it can't, he'll replace it right away.
But don't ask for an elevator.
Well, I'm just gonna say, the elevator.
There's no elevator.
How about the shelter? Have we started stuff over there? The repairs of that shelter we responsible.
We have not yet, they say they're waiting on parts.
So it's gonna be a wait,
Yeah.
whatever we have.
The other thing with this is he said he was gonna include it in that, assessment, the facilities assessment, he would include Silvercrest in there.
Okay.
So that was included in what they needed moving forward.
Okay.
Yeah, we wanted Mike to really be front and center of what does it need because we really didn't know, so.
I was just afraid because with him going through a lot of these buildings and not being gone through for a while, there's gonna be a lot of things that need to be repaired. And priority is gonna be a big thing and you don't wanna buy something and all of a sudden now you're slipping way down because now there's other things more important. When you buy these, you like to get, because as I'm sure the county board, when we're okay and yes or no, how long before, they're gonna need somewhere, you're gonna get it fixed.
No,
The other question, I had two more now.
the
The garage, do these kids drive? Why do they need garages?
The garage came with it.
It comes with
They,
Huh?
do they have a van?
They have a van. Our
They have a
provider-
van.
The van,
our
the
provider
transport.
has a van, and then all of the bikes and those kinds of things are also.
And
Stored in there.
they actually had been doing the grass cutting and.
Oh, okay, so
Snow removal, were they doing?
Housing authorities.
They weren't doing either one of those, okay. But if they had like lawn equipment or whatever, they could store it in there.
Okay.
It's a storage.
storage
area.
most of it. I didn't know what they did.
Yeah. Nobody's driving there,
No.
the kids are not driving.
And the last one I have, is there any more buildings we're gonna have to buy?
God, no.
Let's
Okay,
hope
so
not.
let me just say this,
questioning.
let me just say this, and I was asked that very same question today by someone to my right, like, are we gonna buy any more buildings? And I'm like, no, I hope to God that we don't have to buy any more buildings ever. And have I ever seen, Renee said to me, have you ever had to build a building or buy a building in your career before this? I'm like, no, never. Like, building that crisis center from scratch, that was a first for me, and actually having to buy two separate buildings now to house our services is a very unusual experience for counties.
I didn't know we picked up real estate broker. I wasn't sure if you're doing.
This is too nerve-wracking for me, so
Bill's gonna paint that green wall. He's gonna just painter duds out and paint that green wall.
maybe in retirement, maybe I'll read it combined, cut the grass.
Are there any, okay, to sort of go on with Ralph's question, are there any other facilities that we're currently renting from, like Lutheran Social Services or the Housing Authority or Methodists or anybody? Do we have any more? No, Renee, shake your head no, okay. So there's no chance of buying anymore because we're not renting from anybody else.
No, well, this one, so there are other group homes, right? And if we didn't actually have an exclusive arrangement that the housing authority and us actually went in on many, many years ago, we wouldn't be talking about this. Like if this one just got bought out, we'd wait to see who it got bought out by and then see if we could, get some beds there. But this is an arrangement was the unique exclusive arrangement that we had going back 27 years. So, it made sense that they would ask us first, do you wanna buy it? Plus, there aren't any other group home kids in here. So their family services is not, running this as their own independent operation. They're running it for us, specifically for us and with us. So I think that's what makes it unusual. And no, do I want to buy any more buildings? Absolutely not. Do I foresee any more buildings coming up on the horizon? No, I do not. I do not. Unless, we have an explosion of need and, we have to do something else, which again, usually in the human services business, you don't have an explosion of need. You have sort of the ramping up of amount of work over time. So, our work has gone up since I was here 15 years ago. The number of people that we served in a year was in the 40,000 range, 40,000 case range. We're now into the 55 to 60,000 case range. And we've added staff, but we haven't had to add buildings. So thankfully we don't have to add buildings. And I think the crisis center is going to hold us for quite a while. My hoping is that it'll work for us for quite a while. And I don't think that we're going to need another 8-bed group home anytime soon. So we only need one shelter care. So I think we're good. Honestly, I think we're good.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Some of mine were already answered. Just a clarifying question. This is the Silvercrest that we've talked about before?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
I wasn't sure.
Yep.
And then it was mentioned that this is up to 8 boys. I think shelter care is co-ed, correct? So what do we do for girls?
We are having conversations right now about altering this license to be co-ed. This facility that we could potentially do it as a co-ed facility because our girls right now are needing to leave the area. And there's very few girl group homes right now. So we are having those conversations to see if that's a possibility.
Okay, good to know. It's a licensing thing?
It's a licensing thing.
Okay.
And that, we just have to make sure that we're doing it in a safe method.
Yes. Yes, and let's work really hard to make sure we're treating all of our residents equitably. So thank you for making an effort there, and I hope that something comes up.
Also, we have fewer girls in group home placements than boys, and that's been pretty historic. And the ones that we have, we try to find as close to group home specifically for girls as we can find them. So that's what we do now.
Yes.
If you said to me, are we going to have another building to just house girls? I'd say, well, right now we don't have that need. We don't have a need for a whole separate housing unit. I like the idea that that's got that, maybe if we could get it licensed co-ed, maybe we can make a little bit better utilization of the group home down the road.
Is this a facility that could be added on to in the future? I don't know what kind of space is there.
I don't know a lot about building. I don't see there being enough space to do that, but somebody could tell me different. Maybe we use the garage different and that would be where we'd add on. I don't.
If you were to make the 8 beds co-ed, is there some dividing area that would be able to block off the girls and the boys?
Yeah, there's 2 bedrooms on the first floor and 6 bedrooms are on the second floor.
Oh, okay. There.
We make an effort to keep our kids in the county, close to home, close to their families. But yet if there is a young lady in need, where with the probability is great that she may not be placed in Winnebago County, but placed somewhere else. And so that is a practice in question, I think, at this time. Is it equitable? Is it fair and equitable? And I understand that there might not be the same need, but is it fair and equitable?
That's exactly why we're looking into it. Thank you.
if we were to make it, get a license for co-ed, would we designate those 2 rooms on the first floor strictly for girls? We wouldn't do
I
that.
think we would want to let it up to those managing to determine which rooms were best. So let's say they only had 2 boys in a certain cycle and there was 3 girls, maybe one of those girls, A, would feel safe enough, B, would be safe enough to be, in one of the upstairs, maybe. Or vice versa. Maybe the boys are on the first floor and the girls are on the second floor.
Okay,
So I think we gotta leave it up to
They were managing it, yeah.
yeah,
the environment.
okay.
Can I expand on her question then? I think you said something about the girls had to be sent somewhere.
Yep.
Now, how, can you tell us the process or how expensive it is to outside of our area? Or do we have?
What they are.
We have one group home that's in Mosany that we use because we have a good relationship with them. So that's somewhere in the ballpark of
South
$2, I
of
think.
Wausau.
South of Wausau, that we use.
Yeah.
But we have a good relationship with them that we've had, where we're able to do a lot of back and forth and still engage the families. But you're right, I mean, we need something in our county for the females, but that's what we've used, Rita's Place. And we have not had, historically, as Bill said, right now, we have had 1 person at the most in the last few years. That's in that facility.
Is it expensive?
Is it expensive?
To send them there?
No, I mean, I guess I wouldn't say it's expensive. It's similar cost to most of our placements. But so it's just trying to figure out what's.
More expensive for the families.
Yeah.
If they wouldn't have visited.
But that's why, Annette was the one that said, if we get the building, I'd like us to pursue a co-ed license so that we have the ability to have girls there if they have the capability and, we have the needs. So I think that's absolutely a great idea.
And for those kids who may not identify, is that up to family services as well? Or do we play a role in serving as far as the program design?
Are you talking about they don't identify as a gender or they
Yes.
don't identify? We work with family services to see whether or not they fit in who's in there right now.
Got it.
So, it's all about making sure that the kiddos that are coming in are safe. So there isn't anything to say, no, we're not serving that person solely because of how they identify. It's, are they going to be safe in that setting or not?
Got it. Thank you.
Would we ever consider a trailer type, like a 980 trailer? Like not, like that kind of trailer that be attached to a facility in case we would need additional beds, if we were licensed for more than 8.
Well, here's the thing. When you're talking about kids and you're talking about 24/7 operations, you have to have sufficient staff per shift. So, if you had a trailer, it'd be the same thing as if you had a whole nother house, because basically
You'd have to
you have to
round
have,
the
you
clock
can't have
staff.
staff just go in there occasionally
Right,
and check them into the trailer. They have to literally be in. the
Erase
building all
that.
the time.
And it has to be licensable.
Well, right.
I mean, the big
I don't
thing
think they
is with
license.
youth, we have to license these
Right.
facilities. They have to be licensable. So there are certain things like trailers wouldn't be licensed.
Okay.
And it's interesting because, housing codes too, is different from housing an adult and children. Some facilities that you can take it out there, you can house an adult there, but you can't house a child there.
okay, all right.
That's just.
So for right now, I think the space is great. I think, we'll make good use of it. If we can get a license for co-ed, even better, that we could have some girls be able to be placed here would be fantastic. The price isn't gonna get any better, honestly,
No.
that I can see. And everybody who's in the real estate business goes, yeah, that's not a bad price at all. I don't think we got a problem there. And it's licensed again, it's zoned right. It's been used for the
We've been
same
using it.
purpose. It will continue for that purpose, so we're not gonna get any neighbors up in arms about anything. So, I just think we need to transfer ownership.
Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
On the last paragraph, it says costs. let's see here. The money will be transferred from the unassigned general fund balance or the advance or an advance to the general fund to be reimbursed from a bond issue. Who makes that decision? Any of you supervisors know?
I think the county board does, or finance does, depending on what the county board wants to do. This is the language
I
that,
think finance.
this is the language that they have in the standard.
So nobody knows for sure who makes the decision.
Well, my understanding is that finance will tell the county board whether or
Whatever
not there's
cheaper.
enough money in the general fund, or whether they suggest being part of a bond issue. So it's something that I think they'll suggest to the county board at the time. And then you guys can, those of you on the county board will say where you want it to come from, if that's.
Yeah,
part of
this language has come up on several, in the last,
I know it's changed.
in the last couple of years on big issues. Do we take out general fund or do we bond for it? And I guess it's up to finance to determine which is either more, makes more sense or more cheaper or how to do it.
As I recall conversations from past county board meetings, when it has been this either this or this, and then this is the subsequent bond issue, people always, the board seems to have gotten kind of, we're not issuing bonds. We don't want to do that. But I guess they have the option of removing that line from the resolution, correct? 'Cause I just don't see it flying without being questioned.
Becky, you got a question?
I was just gonna say, as it's been explained to the county board, because this question, the question you're asking comes up all the time, every time we see a resolution. And my understanding is that this particular language has been requested by administration. And so that the decision on whether to use unassigned fund balance or to reimburse it with a bond issue is left to finance. But then at the end of the day, administration comes back to the county board to issue the bond, and then they let us know exactly what it is we're borrowing for.
Ultimate decision is still the county board.
Yeah.
And that came back from something this young man did, is that they have a minimum that they can take on the fund. And when they get close to that minimum, then that's when they decide if they should do a bond or take it, so that they cannot get into it. I think you brought that up one time in the years past, right?
That's why
Yeah, no, that's what I figured, yeah.
Because I knew this push for that when I was on the board.
Yep.
So there's that limit, so they can't take it past that, so
Yes.
that's what, so depending where
So
they,
that-
so what you
so
do.
So
After it,
if I have further questions, I should probably talk to somebody.
yeah, probably,
That's good.
all right, no problem. Any other questions? Any other questions? It's been moved and seconded that we consider this resolution, so I guess all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chris, I know you're on Skype, because I need to record a vote.
You bet. I'm sorry. I have to unmute to say aye. Aye. Sorry
Yes,
about that.
thank you, thank you. All right, so then it's passed 7-0. Just want to get everybody's official countdown. And I know Chris Kniep is on, she's on Zoom. So,
Well, thank you, and we'll keep it going for the next process.
all right, before we move on to the next thing, is there anybody from the public on Zoom that still wants to discuss anything at a public hearing? Because we still have that open for another 12 minutes or so. So if there's anybody that wants to comment on any funded programs for the residents of Winnebago County, let us know, otherwise we'll continue on with the meeting. All right, now move on to number 6, inpatient and institution placements.
Okay, our normal review of our graphs, and not a whole lot of change this past month, which is great news. Child Welfare Division, Juvenile Corrections, which is Lincoln Hills, Copper Lake. Same person there in April, just one, which is great. Do we have an end zone for when that person's gonna be done, or is that not determined?
It's not exactly determined, but will be done this year because he doesn't.
Okay, so that person,
18?
yeah, that person will be ending this year. Okay, next, bottom graph is RCC placements, and I mentioned to all of you that we're gonna see a pretty significant rise this year in our residential care center placements, and that it will be at a high of either 5 or 6 individuals by the end of the year. We're now at 2.9, so say 3. And a couple of them, Annette gave me an update on. One is waiting to go to Minnesota, and the other is another out of state.
The other is there, it just hasn't hit the books yet.
Okay, so we're actively trying to see if we can prevent those that still have yet to go from going, but
And what, and you can choose to go to Minnesota?
so the reason that any of these kids are going out of state is because we have requested a residential placement inside of the state of Wisconsin with the 15 to 20 or so RCCs that are in the state. None of them will accept our person because they claim that they can't either help them or that there's something that they don't want to deal with. And so we've had to look out of the state of Wisconsin.
Like we had to do that for Missy instead of
Like we had to do that for
Massachusetts?
Missy.
They can pick who they
There's,
want.
there are programs in Minnesota, in Illinois, Texas, somewhere in the plains. I can't remember what state. There's some, Nebraska, California. So we have to look wherever we can find a placement, and we're court ordered to do this. So it's not like we're choosing to do it, we're court ordered to do it. And then when that happens, we basically find a placement, it gets ordered, the person gets ordered there, and we pay the bill.
Okay.
So I'm just letting you know, RCC placements are gonna go up and tick up for the first time in many years.
What is the difference in cost between in-state and out-of-state?
Usually out of state is more expensive. Could be 1,500 a month, can be more than that, can be somewhat less than that. It's pricey.
And then there's the cost of our folks to travel and check in.
I mean, 1,500, not a month, 1,500 a day. Sorry, a day.
A day.
So we're talking like 200 to 300,000 a year per placement. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just had to wrap my head around $200,000 to $300,000
Right.
Yeah.
a year.
200 to 300,000 per child per year,
And the county is paying for that.
and the county is paying.
So is this level, it's, forgive me if I'm wrong, but what I think I'm hearing is there's a mismatch between level of service offered versus level of service required when it comes to the care of the individual.
You mean for in-state providers?
Yes.
Or- So we're trying to work with in-state providers, and a couple of them now are considering taking a higher level of need of the child. The child may have, just like with Missy, was not her name, just example. You're having sometimes mental illness and developmental disabilities and extreme behavior like violence, kind of all coinciding in the same person. And if you have that individual in a milieu with a bunch of other kids who aren't that level, then you could actually make all of the other kids' experience worse, not better. And so then the facility decides, we can't take this person because we can't have that person with this group of kids right now. So that's what they tell us, is basically, we're refusing them because they don't fit with the rest of the kids in our group.
So are there facilities that offer the level of care needed in Wisconsin that are just full? Or we don't have facilities that are providing the
don't have
level of care
facilities.
necessary?
Could we have facilities that could do it? I believe, yes, we can. Do we have facilities that will do it? Not right now.
See, the problem is they have the right to pick and choose what they, even though they're court ordered, we have to follow that court order, but these group homes don't have to take it. The only places that really have to take court ordered people are Mendota and Winnebago, and then we're still end up paying $1,500 a day
Well, and that might
You know,
not be the right setting.
in-house, right?
And that's a psychiatric.
And that's a
hospital.
psychiatric
Yeah,
hospital, right?
yeah. So then, what I'm trying to figure out is if it's a state law. Does state law require a level of care and only require a level of care that doesn't meet the needs of some of our population?
What I would say is that there's some state laws in Wisconsin that don't allow, like, we don't do psychiatric residential treatment facilities in Wisconsin. That's a locked psychiatric residential treatment facility for youth. We don't do that, except for like through Mendota, they have to go through corrections, and that's a law. And that is something that the state, that Department of Children and Families is looking at. How could we pilot this and see if it would work? So that they're working on that piece.
So there's a gap then.
There's a gap. The other thing I would say in answer to your question is that, yes, there's facilities that could potentially have the ability to do this. Maybe they don't have everything that they might need, but we also don't have, in what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing is we don't have enough beds for the kids who need that level of care. So like Will talked about, that there are a couple of facilities right now that are gonna pilot providing these services to kids with these complex needs to see if they can do that and if they can afford to do that, and if they have the skills that they need and the training and all those things, to see if they can do that, and then look at expanding that.
Some of these kids need more one-to-ones than place has enough people to supply. Some of the kids need more psychiatric medication and involvement than these places are able to provide. Some of them need just other services that the typical RCC isn't able to supply. So they know their limits. I mean, the upside is they know their limits. They're saying, hey, we really can't take them. The downside is, where are we supposed to go?
Yeah.
And that's been the rub for probably the last 5 years, because this has been a growing problem over the last 5 years for Wisconsin.
Well, I was just gonna say, I don't see this need going away. In fact, I see it increasing.
Right.
And so there needs to be action at the state level to fund and train and,
And we have been
whatever else
trying
needs to be done
to push it, yeah.
to serve.
Both Bill and I are on different committees that's, I mean, we are constantly talking about, we need to serve these kids with complex needs.
So that's
Thank
what
you.
It's expensive, yes, and Annette can correct me if I'm wrong, but whatever mess, psychological, behavior, whatever it was that Missy was in when we were forced to send her so far away, because nothing in Wisconsin, nothing in the surrounding states, we had to go as far away as Massachusetts, and it was expensive. But she is a much better person today, having aged, she's now aged out of the youth thing. From everything you've ever said to us, she's a much better shape. So yes, it was expensive, but we got her to a place where she can function around other people, right? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and that's taking.
And that place was one of the places that we recommended to the Department of Children and Families to go to visit. So there's a couple different places that
See what their
different
program is,
counties have
yeah.
asked them to go to visit to see how we can get that in Wisconsin.
So we invested a lot in her care, but we made her a much better functioning young adult.
Yeah, and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah,
And I'm not saying anything
I
against
know, I don't
that.
think you are. I just
Yeah,
want to let you know that, yeah, there are success stories.
Yes, I
Okay.
understand that, but
State needs more.
But here in Wisconsin,
Yeah.
we need more because there's probably a Missy in
Right.
Massachusetts who needs
Yeah.
that space
Yeah.
too, you know,
Harold,
so.
I have a question regarding the juvenile corrections. When a judge puts a child into that program, does he put a time limit on there? I mean,
usually 6 months a
Yes,
year, isn't it?
when they go to corrections, they put a time limit on it. It has to be a minimum of a year typically. And then there's some certain circumstances where, based on how the child does, there's some possibilities for getting off a little earlier, but it's very specific. The judge orders a very specific amount of time.
so but after a year, does the judge require a social worker to go in there and give a report so to see whether the
Yep.
judge wants to
Yep.
extend it or
Yep.
not?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so let's continue on with page 2 of the graph. This page 2 is the hospitals. So the upper graph is the adults. The lower graph is the kids. The kids graph didn't go up I mean, it's 0.1% there, so the kids, I would say practically isn't doing much of anything. The adults do bounce up and down, and we are having a particularly tough year already, according to my discussions with Heather. That we've got a lot more adults who are needing, a psychiatric hospital level of care. So, and if they're under commitment, we have to place them and we have to pay. And what we do on adults, though, is that after the fact, we assess their ability to pay, and they have to attempt to pay us back for those days of care. Those are at $1,500 a day as well. And yes, we are ticking up in April, and I don't see any relief yet in May. Heather, do you think? No. So I think we're going to be still up. And what we're doing, though,
You just for a second. It's 4:00 right now, so we have to close the public hearing. So thank you for people who participated and gave your comments, but the public hearing now is closed. Thank you.
so what we're doing, Heather's unit is reviewing all the admissions every month. And what they're looking at is, are any of these people known to us? Because there's people that get hospitalized that we've never seen before, we don't have any contact with them, and we will get to know them because now they're in our system. But those folks, we really can't do a whole lot about whether they come in or, what their situation is. It's the people who are known to us that are actually our clients or have been our clients or they have been our system before, and try to take a second look at that and say, let's retrospectively look and see, are there things that maybe we can do in the future to better monitor these folks and their progress post-hospitalization to try to prevent the need for them to go back in. So we're trying to take some steps to be a little more proactive with those cases. Yeah.
Do we see a lot of people in the under 22 who, when they've aged out of there, end up in the adult? They just bounce into the next level? Many do?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, I'd like to say no,
Yeah.
because I really would like to say no.
Yeah.
But they do.
But they just graduate.
Okay.
Okay, and then the last page, actually, there's 2 more pages. Page 3 is our security detention. That's mostly Fond du Lac, and the numbers there are, about what we'd expect. And foster care levels are staying relatively low there. And then if you turn to the last page, our kinship care numbers have been going up, and I think that's, again, we're not seeing that as a bad thing. That's a good thing because kids are being placed with their like kin if they have to be placed out of their home. So, and the kinship care one we added so you could see that in contrast to the foster care. Yeah.
Right.
So you're wondering where the kids go that aren't in foster care? Well, a lot more of them have been going into kinship care. Okay, any other questions?
Any questions on that?
I just got one question that come to mind. With all this mental health issues and people not knowing where they come from, in any of our housing or anything, is there any security fears? Is there anything like worried about people coming in, doing anything, or have we had any problems where people get in big arguments or things happen when that?
Like at the crisis center?
Or is there anywhere there's any kind of a risk that we should be worried about?
Heather, do we have any security risks?
Well, I mean, no, not really. Our staff are trained to do de-escalation and to help manage if somebody does become escalated. They really focus on that de-escalation, looking for triggers. Is there a risk? There's always a risk, but they really do the best that they can to be out there watching like individuals, making sure they're having contact with them if they seem agitated or if they're going to be getting any news that might be difficult to hear. So they really do try to stay on top of it to minimize that risk.
I always hear about all this stuff, and I was like,
All you
is there any risk?
all you can do is train your staff.
Yeah, okay.
Heather said it, de-escalation, whatever, that's the best you can do.
I just want to make sure everybody's safe.
You're not gonna prevent, you're
We
not
do
gonna
a
prevent
fair amount of
everything.
training in self-defense and
Okay, that's it.
managing angry, unhappy people. So we have a lot of training in those areas.
We have folks, that get upset with us as far as even in finance.
As you can imagine, over bills, down in the basement with ES about their benefits. It's not just in behavioral health. You took my kids away in our clinic. Yes, you're not doing enough for my parent. I mean, you can imagine, it's like, we're here to help people, but, not
I
to
just
always say
wonder,
it that
you know,
way.
you can walk right in a lot of times, what if somebody's mad, you did something, I wanna find the person that did this to me and go looking for you. You know, I mean,
You can't
you
protect
get right in the
everything.
door, there's no real, you know.
So in 15 years that I've been here, we have not had a situation where someone has come in and physically threatened anybody or had a weapon or anything like that. So far so good, in my tenure, but I mean, could it happen
Could
any
happen,
day?
yeah.
We're a facility that basically you can walk in the door and get help, so, I mean, I would not like to see an incident happen.
No,
But
that's a good question. I just wondered if, you know, I did security for so long and I know so many people break it right off the wall and I can stop it, but I mean, some people don't want to be stopped. You know, they go back home, bring something home.
I worked with Winnebago for 34 years. You get crap a few times? Yeah, but that's just the way it happens.
Right.
And you
Just want to make sure.
can't tell.
Just happens with you, all your money, right?
All right, finance. Janet.
Okay, so you should have the report based on April financials. Couple things to point out.
What does
Labor-
false mean?
Pardon me?
What is false?
you have false under labor.
Right,
Under labor, what is false?
because that's the way it defaults on the spreadsheet.
Oh,
It's
okay.
either favorable or false, not favorable.
Oh, okay.
And it's false because it's going over.
Well, that's what I figured.
Yeah. So May was the first month where we had a full month of payroll based on the new wage adjustments.
Wage adjustments.
So I'll have a better idea of where we're going after I get the May reports. But we will be over in labor by year end, so we'll be coming to ask for a budget adjustment, probably sometime in the fall. To cover that over expenditure.
But every department will have to do that, right?
Yeah, my understanding was that finance was gonna do some type of adjustment countywide.
That's what I
But I
thought.
haven't heard anything more about that lately, so I don't know if they're gonna now ask us to do what we can on our own as a department.
Janet's been trying to ask them, like, are you gonna transfer money in,
Well, yeah.
knowing that we were gonna have more expenses?
Well, the money was set aside,
2 million.
so
Where'd it go?
They may just be waiting to do a year-end adjustment and do that true up when they see what the actual expenses are.
We just haven't been communicated with, so we don't really know.
understood.
So we're prepared.
So
If
just
we-
be prepared to see minus for now.
Yes.
Okay.
Under labor, under
Yes.
labor.
But we'll get it fixed eventually before year end, so the auditors are happy. The other thing I wanted to point out, if you look at the capital expenditure category, you'll see that it's now all zeros. Whereas previously there had been $1 million there. That was the $1 million for the shelter care facility. There was the 700,000 for the purchase and the 300,000 for the maintenance needs. Finance transferred that all over to facilities now. So it's a net zero for us because they transferred the expenditure and the revenue. So just looks a little different
I
than
have
it
a
had before.
question. Sorry, I should have asked this before, but, is the money available in the human services budget for the purchase of the Silver Crest? Or will we have to go back and,
No, it'll probably happen like Janet was just talking about, that if you approve it, the county board, let's say the 340,000 will then end up in capital, right? It'll sit there, or it might not.
I think they're, in this case, I think they put it directly into facilities.
So it might go
because they
directly
manage
to
those.
facilities, so then we won't need to worry about it, because they handle everything then from facilities.
okay, because we didn't budget for that.
No.
Right, great. So once they decide how they're gonna fund that, then they'll make all those adjustments. But I think we'll fund that with facilities directly. So, if you look at our bottom line, I'm still projecting about the same as last month, around 4 million at year end, but again, it's pretty early in the year, so that's subject to change.
Because we're still using projections of 8 months yet of last year's accounting to come up with these numbers, or how do we?
No, we look at expenditures year to date through April and go through.
Right,
some
but I mean, in order to
assumptions.
make a decision about where we will end up at the end of the year, right? We had to use some months from last year.
No, this is, at this point, it's all
All
based
caught up?
on this year.
Okay,
Because the books close in March. So,
right, but I
Now
mean,
we're all
like when you say
reporting.
favorable for this year, you're calculating out 12 months.
correct.
So some of the months you're calculating are not months that we have had action.
Right,
That's what I'm saying.
right.
That's what I'm
Actuals through April, but yeah.
saying. Actuals through April
And the rest is projected.
and projected, which we're using probably trends from last year, the years. prior.
Yeah, we actually go by line item for each
Okay.
division and look at different things. And
So we're still talking projections.
yeah, it's all projections.
Revenues are favorable, but down 4%.
Now, the way they book revenues, it's actually the negative. So if we have the negative in revenues, that's actually a good thing.
I always forget that about.
I know, that one always drives me nuts.
Drives me crazy.
Negative is good in some reason.
Becky, I hate that too, Becky. I hate that too.
Yeah.
What do you say? Are we positive or negative on that?
Yeah.
We're upside down is what we
I
are.
think that's why they had that favorable and false, and okay, so 2.9, that's favorable, but minus 4.2 is also favorable,
Yeah,
depends on
right.
where it lands.
Because it's revenue, yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to my world.
You can have it.
So the next page, where we look at kind of what our average expected expenditures and revenues would be for a month. You can see that in April, our expenses were a little below average and revenues were just about hitting exactly on. What we
So when you say
expect.
next page, what next page, what was the pie chart? With the pie chart, okay.
And then based on our projections, the pie chart is showing that most of our savings is coming from our operating budget. And then on the final page, you can see again that capital has been zeroed out on that first graph. And then on the second graph, there's a category that says transfer in, and I just wanted to explain what that is. At year end, we will have opioid settlement funds transferred in to offset the Connect program. And then we will also have funds transferred in from the neighborhood investment grant to offset the health program. So that true up is done at year end. So we just kind of budget revenue and expense, and that's kind of what we look at for our projections throughout the year. So that's what I have.
Any questions, Dan? Yeah, go ahead.
On that neighborhood grant that we got, do you guys take care of that? Is that through here?
Okay, so
Not that.
the neighborhood investment grant is administered by Department of Administration. We have a small part of it because we run the health program. Beth runs the health program. And so that is about 900 and some odd thousand, I think.
I think it's just over 1 million.
Or is it over 1 million? Okay, so it's right around 1 million of the 10 million. And so we basically report our expenses to administration, and then they basically do whatever they do with it. Right?
Okay, well, the question I was just asking, of that 10.3, how much has been given out? How much is left? You know, is that not you guys?
All of the neighborhood investment
They all
fund
have
money
gotten their money?
has been delegated out.
Okay, I thought some of them had said that they haven't got their last payment. That's what I was wondering.
Well, it's possible they haven't gotten all their money. but it's
That's
all
what I
been-
meant.
it's all been-
We got the money, but they haven't got.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's been allocated.
But they
allocated,
were
just haven't
saying that
paid it yet.
some of them had said that they had the money, we had the money, and we just never gave it to them yet. So I was just wondering what it is.
So the person to ask about that would be Mike Collard.
Karen,
Okay, I'm kind of piggybacking on, back to the Silvercrest thing. How much are we thinking we're turning back into the county in terms of surplus? Looking at it right today, I know we're not even halfway through the year yet, but at the end of the year, what do you think we might be turning back into the county as we do every year, our surplus? We have any clue at all?
Yeah, right now I'm thinking around 4 million.
4 million.
Okay, so rather than turn in the 4 million, why not turn in 4 million minus 430,000?
Because that's not how it works, Karen.
Yeah. I was gonna say, that makes sense, Karen. It doesn't work there.
Theoretically, the money we've been turning back for the past several years,
Yeah.
the surplus goes into the general fund.
General fund.
Why? Okay,
So they could take it
how
out
come we
of that.
have to put the whole thing? Don't give gave me this trouble. I'm trying to help you, you guys had a question first.
It's government accounting.
I don't- Any other questions, Janet?
Right, never mind.
Go ahead, Harold.
Every now and then we talk about, we get some money from the state and maybe occasionally from the federal. Money we didn't expect. And it's usually a hunk of money. I'd like to, somewhere on this report, we keep that out separate. And just to see, and then even maybe go back a couple of years so we can pick that number out, just so we can see a comparison. Is this money we never expected.
So I would ask Janet how complicated that is to do.
We usually, in this little box where I have the issues.
I know it's always in there,
Say-
but do we, month, we lose it. If we had a column for it, it'd be there all the time. And I know, I'm not talking nickel and dimes, you pick a number, say anything over 50,000.
We can do that. We'd have to talk about how we define that because
Yeah.
there's prior year revenue. That's very easy. It's a separate line item. But then there's other grants where we might like all of a sudden they'll give us additional money. And that's in a sort of commingled with the.
Let's give it some thought anyway.
Okay, we'll work on it.
Yeah, don't worry. Totally. Thanks. Any other questions? Seeing none, then we'll go on to Deputy Director Renee.
I'll just say status quo so that we can, which I'm fine with. No new curveballs is okay, so we can move on unless you have some specific questions for me.
Any questions for Renee?
I was trying to think of something.
I'm thinking of,
I did tour the day-by-day shelter where they had that grand opening and it was quite impressive. And I thought about, what our staff, you and your staff went through to keep it all open over that Christmas disaster. It's a beautiful facility.
And we have our fingers crossed that we will not have to intervene.
Yeah, really.
And this is what I have told them. I would like it very much if we don't have to intervene to help you at all.
Yeah.
That you can manage it yourself with the aid of your fellow shelters around the area, Fond du Lac, Appleton, like mutual aid. I've encouraged them to develop mutual aid agreements with their fellow shelters, so that if something comes up next winter, maybe they can help each other out. As opposed to asking us to. So that's an idea. But yeah, it's a great facility.
Any other questions for
Thanks, Renee.
us? Then Director for Bill.
4 things. First one is thank you for those of you who did go to the WITS conference.
Very good.
I think it was well attended. We got the final results. Over 80 folks attended, most of them in person, some by Zoom. In the future, it's been determined that we will try to look for a location that's more central in Wisconsin. So it's probably not going to be Elkhart next May. It'll probably be Point or Rapids or Wausau, more than likely. They want board members to really focus on attending the May meetings from now on. And the December ones, where you were also invited in the past, they're going to try to make that a more concentrated conference in December. We call it the fall conference. I don't know why you call it the fall one.
It's winter.
And that one's typically in Stevens Point, and that one's going to be mostly for, they want directors, deputy directors, and managers to go to that one. It's going to be more technically oriented around some trainings for that. So it'll just be the May one from now on, to focus on that. I don't know where it's going to be. Let's say, just guess Stevens Point for next May. But if you can go, I think you get a lot out of it, and appreciate you guys going to that one.
Well, any place we go to is cheaper than the Elkhart, like the Osthoff. Osthoff, it's gonna be cheaper than that place, right?
Oh, it wasn't that expensive.
The price is determined somewhat by how much the place costs, but it's also our cost of like getting the conference room and doing all of that stuff. So I think the total cost for the Osthoff was $36,000, and with our registrations, we only had about 27,000, so we lost money on it.
Okay.
So we have to have larger attendance next time or less expenses. So that's what we're going for. Okay, second thing, before I forget, this Saturday, is our, I can't remember what year now, what number of year it is. But it's our annual wheelchair wash. And it's gonna be downtown Oshkosh. For those of you who haven't gone, we want to invite each of you to go. It's from 10 to noon. And what's the place we use?
JNR, I did put a flyer in each of your packets.
right off the Parkway Street.
JNR Auto. And basically,
Parkway, Maine.
you can just come and just kind of see what's going on. You can participate by helping clean wheelchairs. You can participate by helping people. We have a food stand, and so some of us help with doing waiter and waitressing for that stand. There's music, and it's right off of the farmer's market. So, you know, if you're down there anyway, you can go do a little farmer's market and stop by. So we'd really encourage you to attend. It's our, I don't know, it started at least a half.
2016, but we skipped a year, so I think.
I was gonna say a half dozen years ago. And Larry has been our main food service provider for every year except for this one. And I'm always amazed that Larry has an entire food stand in his car. That guy can unload his car and it's a food stand. I mean, like everything is there, the tables, the tent, all of the food, the grill. I mean, everything, he could pull everything out of his car. And I was just like, how do you get everything in there? He does. So it's amazing. So thanks, Larry, for all those years you did. So if you can stop by this Saturday from 10 to noon, great. If you can't, we totally understand. Okay. Next thing I want to mention is the 2022 annual report. You guys got sent this, and no, we didn't make paper copies for everybody, but you all are special, and so we made paper copies for you. And basically, it's the same format as the previous years. We have a few graphs on, you know, how many people did we serve in the last couple of years? What are we focusing on as far as objectives, accomplishments? And we also emailed all the county board members with an electronic copy, and they will get a chance to see that as well. We're not talking about this today. If there's any questions about it, though, that you have any questions about it, either now or in the future, if you can see the area where it's coming from, you can ask me, or you can ask any of our managers to help you understand the graphs and what's in them or what we're doing. But we want to do this because this is not the budget, this is our programs. This is really what we are doing for programming, and it's much better to see this visually, I think, because otherwise if we just put it all into the packet with the numbers and the budget, it kind of gets lost. So that's why we do an annual report.
This is the annual report for last year, right?
Yep.
I'm not on there. What'd you do? Is there some kind of notice that I didn't get in the mail?
I'm gonna say Jerry Finch.
Well, I'm not on
You're
there
not on
either,
there
Ralph.
either? What the heck?
This is,
Well, I could say that we probably used the previous years
I was just gonna say.
as a template, and nobody fact, we didn't catch it in the.
That would have been like 2 years ago now.
Yeah, this has been 2 years ago.
My hunch is that it got just copied over
Yeah, it
from
wasn't
the previous year
updated.
that we didn't update, so.
I'm not sure who to blame for that. Yeah, me, I'll take it. Yeah.
I just noticed that.
Where are these people? What?
Maybe that's why we give them.
Yeah.
Well, since it's electronic,
We
Bill,
can update
you
it.
can just send the board members.
Sure, we can
a
update
corrected
it.
one page.
Resend it, sure.
You can update it online, and that's where people access it.
Only the personal emails on here will work, the other ones won't.
Yeah, well, maybe it's a blessing in disguise that they don't know you're on the board, or that they can't contact you.
No, Rachel's not here either. This is a couple years ago. This is the last board.
Well, you caught one of our misprints, so. there you go.
How do I know the rest of this?
Oh.
What you gonna do?
Trust this.
Becky, stop being so suspicious. You absolutely updated the rest of it.
Yeah, how do we know you just run this through the
As of
computer?
2020, this is.
Yeah, well, I encourage you to go back, find your 2021 book and see if it matches the.
I know exactly where it is.
All right, I can't remember what the last thing is, honestly, it's escaped me now.
Nico Award.
Oh, Nico, that's what it was. Thank you, Beth. So, this year, our county executive requested firstly, that we would put in for a NACO Achievement Award for the work that we did over the holiday. Because he thought that that was a hell of a lot of work and should be recognized nationally by NACO. And what we found out in the process of trying to write it up was that they don't accept awards for a limited event. So only programming and things that you have created that will potentially go on long term. So we switched it up, and then John had also said, well, why don't we write up the HELP program, which is Beth's program. And that's the homeless eviction and loss prevention program that Beth has reported on. I think you just reported on that last month. And so we've got, since then, we got an announcement from NACO that they accepted that, and it is part of the NACO Achievement Awards for this year, which they will be announcing at the July NACO conference. So NACO recognizes, counties that have high-performing programs and or new programming that's innovative and exciting. And I also want to put a shout out to Renee, because Renee was tagged with having to write it up. It was going to be the program or the event that happened over the holidays, and then it switched to HELP, and then Renee just basically wrote up the HELP program. And I'm like, I was surprised today because she said, I wrote the whole thing for the HELP program, and I said, well, you could have managed, you could have talked about that. And I said to Beth, well, you didn't have to write it up because Renee did it, and thank you, Renee, for writing that up. So kudos to the staff, because to be recognized by NACO is important, because they do vet them. If they don't think it's enough, they don't pass it. So it's trying to recognize innovative county program.
Okay, so since the Christmas fiasco didn't count for the NACO thing, and you've already had a report written up, could it be sent to the governor and ask for some recognition statewide?
And he'd send a letter saying, yeah, that was great. I mean, we could, but it's going to turn around, he's going to write a letter. He's not going to recognize it in any other way. Probably more work than to send it to him.
All right.
Anyway, so we just wanted to share with you the NACO award for the HELP program. That is a very innovative program. Beth reported on how many people were serving last time. So we're going to keep that going. The program is going at least through the end of 24, because it's part of the Neighborhood Investment Fund program.
Renee, you saved lives.
We did, yes,
And
we
so-
did, but thank you.
Whether you're recognized by any organization at all, that was a horrible blizzard mess, falling apart of one agency doing what, and you stepped in and you saved lives. Okay.
County exec did acknowledge that, they did get acknowledged.
Yeah.
And like many things in human services, I will say this, that most people in human services don't care whether they get an award or not. They do it because they know it's the right thing to do and they want to serve. So I salute all of the staff for all the ways they serve every day. And it's just fantastic. And I'm glad that they got an award. And it's our second one for the department, because in 2017, we got an award for child welfare.
2020.
Was it 2020? Oh, I don't know why it's 2020. So hopefully we all take a turn. Hopefully every part of human services takes a turn.
Any questions from Bill?
That's it. All right.
Any questions from Bill? I got one. What about the Black Valley Tech thing?
I have an update for you. So some of the people in this room don't know what he's talking about. So in Wixa, going back many years, we created a sort of offshoot of regional programming where once a quarter, we'd have board members from our Human Services Board in our region, which goes from Marinette up in the north to Fond du Lac in the south to Manitowoc, Sheboygan in the east to Marquette County in the west, West Shore Marquette. So I have secured, or I am in the process of securing, for June 30th, which is a Friday. And I'm going to make an announcement as soon as Fox Valley Tech gets back to me, that we will have another quarterly meeting of just Human Service Board members from the region. So you don't have to go to that. It's basically 2 hours, starts at 10. Everybody who's there goes around and talks about their county and what's going on in their county. So these are board members. These aren't Human Services directors. I facilitate it because I got pegged with doing that many years ago. So I facilitate it, but basically it's board members talking to other board members, giving reports on what everything's going on in the region. And then we have a presenter from 11 to noon. And our presenter this year is going to be Chelsea Shanks. And Chelsea's our new lobbyist for Wisconsin County Human Service Association, and she is on loan to us from WCA. And she'll tell you all about what her job role is and basically what she's been working on with the budget to date.
Yeah.
So she's tentatively agreed to be the presenter. So you guys are the first hearing about it. And again, when I officially get that room, I will send out an official announcement to all of you and the other county board members in the other counties. And because they have asked,
over by that playground, that children's playground entrance again?
well, it depends on where they give us a room. I put in a request for
Nice, easy place to get.
So the other part about that, so it's a Friday from 10 to noon. I sneak in some refreshments. Don't anybody squeal, because you're not supposed to sneak in refreshments to the, they want you to do their catering.
Coffee and donuts.
So I sneak in a few refreshments, and then when we get done at noon, then a lot of the counties like to go and just eat lunch somewhere, and then they drive back. So they get a per diem, they get their mileage, they have a meal. So I know that's why partly they like doing this. But the other part is you have a chance to forum
They're
with
really interesting.
your colleagues in other counties. Get a chance to meet them and say hello, and they'll report out a little bit on what's going on in their county. So that's what we've been doing. We call it the Eastern Region Human Service Board Member Quarterly Meeting. So if you guys want to go to that, it'll be coming up. The announcement is forthcoming.
I did have some questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
It came back to me.
Oh, go ahead.
Do you have any updates on the items that were discussed at the legislative day in Madison back in April?
A little from Chelsea. We asked for 100% funding for crisis. A separate bill now has been introduced by Representative Ballweg to do just that. So anybody can introduce the bill. So right now it's circulating for people to sign on to it. It's going to be part of the budget that Joint Finance reviews. So that's good because it had to become a bill in order for it to even get some traction. So that one's going 100% funding for community support programs, which was in the governor's budget. It's still in the list of bills for the legislature. So that one's in. Adult Protective Services, we're still trying really hard to get that introduced by a representative, and they're walking on it a little bit because they think that they want counties to regionalize in order to get more money. So their requirement is like, you have to become partners with other counties to get the money. And we're like, well, that's not kind of, it doesn't really work well that way, but that's what they want. So we're still kind of working on, can we come up with an alternative, maybe some of the money so that we can work on thinking about regionalization. Birth to 3 is going nowhere. Funding for that increase is going nowhere. And child support, I think, is getting some traction to get more money for child support. So I was here. And the last one is maintenance of effort for children's long-term support, which we are greatly disadvantaged by because we have to put in 800 something thousand a year.
5,000.
How much?
Let's say close to 800.
795.
795. So we have to do a maintenance of effort for our program, and all the other counties around the state, except for 2 of them, we're the 3rd highest amount that we have to put in for that. And we asked the legislature to take it out completely and just fund it with general purpose revenue. And we got actually Representative Schraw's office. Our local Representative Schraw is authoring the bill to remove it.
And
So-
replace it?
And replace it with $6 million of general purpose. So they're all in. So except for Birth to 3 and APS with Adult Protective Services, which is having a little, the rest of them are in. The rest of them are in circulation for joint finance to consider, which they will be doing in 2 weeks. They're taking up all the bills in 2 weeks.
Okay.
So then we'll know. I mean, 4 weeks from now, we'll probably know.
Well, I guess overall, that's good news.
Oh, yeah. That's further than we've ever gotten in any other biennial budget.
At least this far, anyway.
At least this far.
This far, it's
At
not
least this
complete
far.
yet.
At least, we usually end up dying at this stage where.
They haven't been taken out yet.
So, yeah.
And then, any updates on priority-based budgeting? Like, how are things going?
So we've had, I would say we're kind of in the 33% range of getting there. Why I say 33% is that there's 3 phases. First phase was putting everything into an inventory. So redistributing your program and redefining it by kind of pulling it apart, taking it apart and saying, so we have a program that's, let's say, outpatient mental health. We can't leave it in outpatient mental health. We've got to define it by what does outpatient mental health do. So we divided ours into, I think, overall about 75 different subcategories. We had 16 programs to begin with, 75 categories. And the only one, they added one to ours, which was a category for how much time does it take all of us to prep for committee work and for county board and to respond to all of you. So they wanted us to track that as a separate program because it is very time consuming. And so they want us to track that. So they added one to ours. So we have 76. So now we're done with the inventorying. The next step is going to be reallocating the funding the way we used to do it into, okay, out of those 76 categories, how much staff time, money, resources goes into each one of those 76 categories.
Okay.
That's going to take some work. We don't understand how that's going to work yet. I'm looking at Janet because Janet's going to be, unfortunately, the one, and her staff are going to have to try to figure out how to attach the money to these different program components. That's the second third of the pie. And the last third is rating. And that's where, after you get the first 2 done, and I don't know who's going to do the rating. I think it's going to be a group of people, probably in, upper administration. And they're going to rate each of those items. Oh, I heard that there's 700 plus items countywide.
I was just gonna say, there must be oodles.
I think they got it down to 500. So there's a lot of categories. This is, I'm talking countywide now, how many categories. And so then money's gonna have to be attached to each one of those categories. And then they're gonna have to be rated for, are they mandated or not? Do they serve all of the county population or just a specific subgroup of people? There's gonna be some other criteria that they're gonna get rated on. And so then those ratings will determine priority of how important those items are in the big scheme of things. And then that's going to be presented to you prior to, I think somewhere prior to October. That's about all I know.
Thank you.
Because I'm trying to figure it out too.
That's helpful to me, very helpful.
So I think that's what we're doing. And if time slips away and we don't get to all of it, then I don't know what we're doing. We'll probably go back to doing it the way we did it last year. I'm guessing that's our fallback.
That's what it sounds like what they said.
Right? So I mean,
They
that's
said that
kind
they're
of,
still gonna have that, but this is just to try, take a couple of years to kind of get everybody on the same page. We'll automatically go. A different way to look at it.
We're still under, and the other question that goes along with that is that when we meet in July, at whatever date we set, it's my understanding that John and Ethan will be here to explain priority-based budgeting as well, so.
Karen?
One last question for me, for the director. How many people do we have in the 980 housing, and how many spaces do we still have available? And do we know of anybody in the pipeline?
We have two people in the trailer. We have a third person that is needing to come out, that the judge hasn't given us a final decision on what we have to do with them. The Mike Elder is waiting for I think the bids for the contractors to get in so that he can figure out which one we're going with, and then they're gonna start building.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, we're building.
We're building 4
yeah.
units.
We're voting on that.
I know, it was like a year.
That's like an hour of a meeting.
We're building four units because that's all we could afford for $1 million.
Yeah.
Because you all had
Cut it down.
You all had approved $1 million.
But the 980 trailers that we have right now, how
There's
many?
only one
There's only one.
above ground trailer.
Okay.
Okay, and what you all voted on was to spend up to $1 million to build housing units that are they're not tiny homes, okay? But they are relatively small in size, like a tiny home, but they all are going to be connected, but not connected in such a way that is like an apartment structure. They're all gonna have a connection, but meet a different kind of standard. Mike Elder knows more about the specifics of it, but it's gonna be a 4-unit.
Well, it's 4 now, because we okayed more. But the
You
city
okayed up to
said
8.
No,
You okayed up to 8.
the city wouldn't.
Well, there were 2 problems. One is the state didn't like 8, but the second problem was you couldn't get 8 out of $1 million. So they only could build as many as the million could pay for, and with all the costs that have gone skyrocketing, 4 units was the max.
So 2 inmates, is that the right term? Are
No, they're
currently,
patients, they're not inmates. 980s aren't inmates.
okay, what are they?
They're patients, well.
So there's
They're
2
not
men
patients.
currently living in one of
980
the.
residents.
It's a 980
There's
resident.
currently
Yeah, I suppose.
2 980 residents in the same. Facility.
Well, let's call it a mobile home or something.
I think it is a mobile home.
Let's call it a mobile home.
Yeah,
You have 2 bedrooms. You can have only 2 residents in
in each one.
that mobile home.
Yeah.
There aren't any other things built right now.
Right.
So the judge could say, do a bunch of things. The judge could order one of the 2 that are there out, and put the 3rd person in. The judge could order that person be placed privately someplace. I mean, I suppose.
Don't you know how easy that is?
Or the judge could fine us for not having a place.
Did the judge ever okay this? Because at one time they said they wouldn't okay it until you build it, and then we'll see what happens.
It's only the state that wouldn't okay it. And now the state said if you build it, we'll use it.
They did, okay.
So that's the update. Somebody asked this question. That's the update.
All right, anything else? Bill?
Our next meeting is July 17th then?
Yep.
At 9 a.m. I have.
9 a.m.
Okay.
in Oshkosh.
In Osh.
Yep. 9 a.m. in Oshkosh.
17th,
And what we are gonna do.
What time?
9
9
o'clock.
a.m.
And what we're gonna do is we're gonna, pending nothing new, we're gonna basically do the old budget process for you. And then we'll go through each of the divisions, and we'll talk about our budget process. So it'll be, unless something changes, it's gonna be like the old process.
Like your breath?
If something changes, then we'll tell you what the new process is, and then we'll do that. But right now, we're going with the old process.
And then John and Ethan will be here on August 7th. Is that
Oh,
my
that's right, they were gonna
understanding?
be here on August 7th. Yes, so yes, they said August 7th. I'll clarify with them. So what they didn't like the fact that we're doing the old process early, but they really didn't have a good remedy for it. And I said, you were very insistent that you wanted everybody to be participating in creating the budget for county exec, and that date was the only date that really worked. So that's why we went with July. So.
Karen?
My only report is after doing the county tour of facilities, and I saw how sparse the food pantry was, in the child welfare facility. And I knew from, a woman who is one of the people in charge of the food pantry at St. Thomas Episcopal Church in Menasha, that they had a pantry 6 or 7 times larger than the one at that facility. That they had so much food from the post office Mother's Day drive that they didn't have room to store it all. And so I arranged for a few hundred pounds of food to be donated from the St. Thomas pantry to the facility. There was a lot of tuna, macaroni and cheese, a lot of things that we thought kids would like. So, and I can't remember the name of the woman who came down and picked it up, but I thought it was gonna be Joaquin, but it wasn't, it was somebody else. So that's my only report. Filled the shelves.
Yep, good, thank you. Ralph?
I don't have anything, Mr. Chairman.
Harold?
Mr. Chairman, I have no report.
Jeff? Nothing. Chris, you got anything you want to add?
Just wanted to thank you guys for sending the attachment that was with the public hearing notice that listed all of the programs. I'd probably seen it before, but it was really nice to have and review. So thanks to whoever pulled that all together for us.
Good, thanks. The only thing I have, and if it's okay with you guys, and I already talked to Pam, I haven't talked to Bill yet, because I get several phone calls per month on this or whatever, is I like to put a standing issue on the agenda, elevator update. And I don't care if we say, is there any elevator update? And Bill says, nope, I haven't heard anything yet. At least this way I can tell those people, we brought it up at our meeting and there was no update, because I get several, unless there's an update.
You can put anything you want on the agenda. You're the chair, so you can do elevator.
Speaking of the elevator,
Is there any update?
No.
right here in Winnebago County, we have a foundry. Can't they make the piece we need?
Nope.
Okay, well, there's that answer.
So I mean, that's the only thing.
These are specially made pieces for an elevator. And
Right.
it isn't.
So if it's okay with you guys, I want to put that standing issue
I
on
second it.
the agenda.
Yes, absolutely do that.
The motion was made, seconded, to have a standing, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it, so we'll put that as a standing agenda item. That's an update.
We get a
Absolutely
tour.
no, that's-
Well, that's okay, at least if somebody said, did you bring it up, I can say, yeah, I did.
Can we get a tour over the elevator? Just like the Big Bang Theory,
Is
remember
there
that?
a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
All in favor say aye. Aye, we're adjourned, thank you all.
When it's working, we're all gonna ride up and down.
See you next month.
And then you're just gonna freak